Ready?
Got open man. DJ Moore. End zone. Touchdown. Touchdown Bears.
I am Jeff Joniak.
Blitz is on. Down he goes. Brisker.
What was it like playing for Coach Ditka?
I don't want to answer any questions like that.
Pressure coming. He's in big trouble. Down he goes. Montez Sweat.
And
Now, Bears Etc., brought to you by Miller Lite with the voices of the Bears, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer.
Things are going well at training camp for the Bears, and it really ramps up as we approach the phase of full padded practices. That'll be coming up later this week. Jeff Joniak, Tom Thayer, and welcome into episode 79 of the Bears Etc. podcast, brought to you by Miller Lite. We got the Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer, our special guest this week, second-year defensive tackle Gervon Dexter. Tom, how you feeling, buddy? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Anticipation of pads getting on. I think you can tell a little bit more about certain positions. However, I'm kind of okay with the no pad part of it, even though I'm reluctant to say it, because I think the mental part of it for Caleb Williams, for Shane Waldron, for all the specialty positions on this football team, it has such an important role in the overall success of it. When you have a chance to go through meetings and be repetitive about the information that you're installing on the field, it's going to be super beneficial in the long run.
I was almost going to have to ask you if you have a fever or something, that you made that part. I mean, am I talking to the same Tom Thayer right now?
Yeah, I am. But, again, hey, listen, I wish it was full pads all the time. We talked about there could be 3 full padded practices before the first game, the Hall of Fame game, and I would have 3 padded practices in a day and a half of camp. So, but I'm looking at the reality of modern day football and the role and the importance that Caleb Williams is going to play in hopefully a decade of success for the Bears.
Observations about Caleb are going to come fast and furious every single practice for the rest of his career. Obviously, it's the marquee position in all of sports, and he's the number 1 overall pick and high expectations. Observations from my point of view, Tom, couple of things. One, you often tend to look at body language as a reporter or an observer, and reporters make a living off of this, and sometimes reading body language can give you a total misread. Don't read into it too much. But what I see is an intensity about him as the plays coming in from Shane Waldron. The music's playing. It's pumping at a very high volume at practice during team drills. It lowers throughout the rest of practice, but it's a testament to what he's going to face on the road in the coming weeks of his rookie season. But he really wants that play in there. He goes to players afterwards. I saw a conversation with Keenan Allen, a conversation with Cole Kmet. These are positives for me to see how engaged he is in the moment, and that, as you always like to say, that instant of time where you can make corrections and get on the same page.
That communication will never stop. If we're talking about Caleb Williams 10 years from now in breaking in a new receiver that maybe they brought aboard in the draft, that conversation is going to continue. Right now, the role of the conversation plays an uber important role in the success and the development of timing, of the understanding of coverages, the accuracy factor, what you saw out of the coverages that were being offered to you on certain down and distances in parts of the field, right hash, left hash, middle of the field. So those conversations will never stop.
A player came up to me the other day and said, let me tell you something. He's got a very catchable ball. It doesn't matter if it's a short pass, an intermediate pass, or a 50-yard pass down the field. A very tight spiral catchable ball. The importance of that, Tom, for a receiver is what?
It's just the confidence that the ball is going to be delivered at a velocity that's very catchable, no matter if you're 10 yards away or 35 yards away. And I think sometimes over the course of history, now that we've been around football for almost 30 years, we've seen quarterbacks that come in here and, yeah, their arm is described as a cannon, but the cannon has to have control. If you're throwing a cannon pass that's about an 8-yard outlet pass to a running back and it splits his hands, even though they have those gloves that have just a lot of grip built into them, it's different than the pass that's got to be a floater of 15 to 18 to 20 yards away. So, yeah, I think the quarterback's recognition of his arm talents is as important as it is knowing what the play is and where the ball's going to go.
And as an extension to that, yeah, you don't want the ball eating up receivers, especially in that short game, because a lot of passes are going to be completed from the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage to 10 yards, and those are going to be catch and run plays, those plays over the middle where you got to thread the needle and you got a defender on your back. You got to make those nice and easy, and those fades in the end zone, the back shoulder throws. But as an extension of that, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I got to trust my eyes. Yes, there have been some incompletions, of course, but the ball is not on the ground a lot.
Yeah, it's true. I think Caleb understands the target. Maybe sometimes he's going to hold on to the ball a half a second to 3/4 of a second, a little bit too long. That will probably be sped up the more he gets to understand the offense. But the key ingredient there is what you said, and I'm glad you did say it, because not being on the ground, tip balls are disaster. So if you have a ball that's not on the ground, it's into the hands of the receiver, then that's what we need to see out of a quarterback. You talk about a velocity of a quarterback, and if you're starting to get those balls that go through the hands of the receivers, the first thing that defensive back is living on is tip balls. And so you need to see the accuracy complement the offense.
Tastes like Miller time. Go to MillerLite.com/BearsPod to find delivery options near you. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Met with the folks from Miller a couple of days ago. Always a fun bunch. They had the Miller Lite on ice, Tommy. First thing in the morning, enjoying practice. You were tempted, I know. You were tempted.
Listen, anytime there's an ice cold beverage, whether it's something that's offered to you out of practice or inside the viewing suite, there's nothing like a cold beverage at training camp. I remember back in training camp in our days, they used to have these 50-gallon drums that were filled in ice and a thirst quenching product. And when you had the time to go over there, grab one, open it up, you drank the whole can or whatever you were offered, because you only had maybe 2 or 3 plays in order to get your drink and get back in line to get your next rep. So
now you're not suggesting there were beers in there.
No, never.
Oh.
But
you had me thinking.
They had a different, whether it be water or whatever product that they have on the field, they had these intermittently placed big tubs, and it was so good, man. When you had your chance to go and grab something to drink and those exhausting times at Platteville, it's super rewarding.
Let's talk about the offensive line relative to Caleb Williams and his ability to get rid of the ball in a timely manner, read it or dump it or just find the completion, because that over the last couple of years has been an issue for the Bears offense. So it was the longest period of time holding the football for Justin Fields in the NFL at better than 3.1 seconds on average. So what will that do conversely for the offensive line when he gets rid of it on a quicker fashion?
Okay, first of all, if they're in an opponent's stadium that has a loud atmosphere, the offensive guard is going to be the indicator to the center that the ball is going to be snapped. As soon as they give that indicator to the center, that's when the time frame really starts. You get the center quarterback exchange, and then if that quarterback can get the ball out of his hands in the right amount of time according to the protection that the offensive line heard inside the huddle, then rather than holding and sustaining your block for a second and a half, now you're sustaining your protection for 3/4 of a second to a second, and then a lot more battles can be won. Now, the offensive line has to break the huddle with the understanding of the time of the protection called in the huddle. You have a 3-step drop, it's going to be a little bit quicker than a 5-step drop. If you have a play action pass, that means that you're going to go out and try to sell the run more than you are going to be a pass protector. So there's differences in every protection, but with the immediacy of the ball out of the quarterback's hands, it really is so beneficial to an offensive line.
All right, among the quarterbacks you play for, obviously, Jim McMahon and Mike Tomczak and Steve Fuller. There were many others over the course of your time with the Bears. How were they in terms of getting rid of the football as a group?
McMahon was instantaneously, because he understood the coverage that he was facing from his experience in college, and he knew where the ball was going to go as soon as it was snapped by Jay. But then you also had guys like Mike Tomczak that got rid of the ball quickly in terms of what he determined to be his read and where it would go. Steve Fuller was not the athlete that, Tomczak and McMahon were at the time, so he had a little bit more time getting back to his stance, and then he was more of a slow, methodical thrower. And then you had Jim Harbaugh come in. It was kind of an athlete playing the quarterback position, and then had a lot of time to be able to try to learn the system perfectly to incorporate his athleticism in his delivery. And sometimes he held on to the ball a little bit longer, but that's it, the speed of his game picked up as time went on throughout his career with the Bears and his career in the NFL.
Doug Flutie was an inexperienced quarterback playing with a really experienced team. I think it was a little unfair to kind of make a determination on him because his size was talked about more than his delivery. So you had to provide protection for him and create a stalemate on the line of scrimmage. So he separated. And remember the drops back then were 3, 5, and 7-step drops. So that's a significant difference when you're talking about those 3 types of drops. And we are so successful at running the ball, we ran a lot more play action than other teams did in the NFL. But Doug Flutie, we really didn't have a long enough period of time to figure out. And I was thinking about Doug today because he had a great career in the long term when you're talking about the Canadian League, the USFL, and the NFL. And still doing commercials with Frank Thomas.
Hey, he looks great.
He's got good flow.
60. Yeah.
He's got really good flow. Peter Tom Willis.
Peter Tom Willis had a really slow cadence. And I remember asking Peter Tom Willis because he was a Southern drawl type of player. So he would go, blue 14, blue 14, set hut. And where the other guys would go, blue 14, set hut. And so their hard count was a lot more deceptive to the defensive line than Peter Tom Willis. And I remember asking him if he could speed up his cadence because it's too slow of a cadence and there's not a lot of deception there for the defensive line. But Peter Tom Willis was a good quarterback, a lot of college experience, but he wasn't as escapable as some of the other quarterbacks that we played with.
Yeah, that covers it, though. You didn't have that many during your time.
Right. We are super fortunate to have McMahon for a period of time. Tomczak had I think he started out 10-0 as a starter in his career for the Bears with Steve Fuller here and then Harbaugh and Flutie and such. That's what we lived with.
What did you learn from Greg Landry during your time?
I learned more. Greg Landry was my first quarterback in the USFL. So
that's why I bring it up.
I was a teammate with Greg, and he was one of the toughest guys I've ever met in my life. One time he got hit under the chin and he bit off half of his tongue and he never missed a play.
Oh, God.
And then but as a player, he tried to be a mentor as much as he did a teammate. And that's what I really respected about him. He used to tell me, don't fall into a trap of some of the guys here in the USFL because they're ending your career right when you're beginning your career. And he was a super tough guy that had complete control of the huddle. As a football coach, he had command of the offense, but sometimes we were fighting in an uphill battle because we didn't have the 85 Bears there. We had some movable parts that weren't the same as the guys we had at one time.
Yeah, 1984 as a Bears player, also as a quarterback, receiver, and tight ends coach from 86 to 88. He went over to U of I in the 90s, and, of course, coming into the NFL with the Detroit Lions as the number 11 pick in the draft. And Greg Landry...
At one time, he was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL with Detroit, and he just had some years that were absolutely brutal. But in the long run, I think that's why I respect his toughness so much, because I saw him as a Detroit Lion. I played with him as a member of the Chicago Blitz, and I respected him as a coach of the Chicago Bears.
Comeback Player of the Year in 76, an All-Pro first team in 1971 with the Lions in his third NFL season. And he's a New Hampshire guy living out on the East Coast. All right, let's switch gears, Tommy, and move into our conversation with Gervon Dexter. I love this. I love this because you can see the big difference, and we've seen it annually, from rookies who are quite not sure of what they're dealing with over the course of the season, maybe a bit reserved unless they have a really outgoing personality, and then this monumental glacial change in their demeanor. And that would be the man that Matt Eberflus calls Dino Dexter, Gervon Dexter Sr., our conversation with Tom and I. We've been talking about you since the middle of last season on, and very excited. And I was trying to flip a coin. Whose body changed the most, you or Dominique Robinson? Because you guys both are massive right now. You guys look good. You guys showing off in the mirror a little bit?
That's a tough one, just because Dom, before he changed his body, he still looked pretty.
I know,
you know what I mean? So I'll probably give it to myself just because Dom was already.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a massive investment of time, and you feel a totally different player, don't you?
Right.
Yeah. What's the benefits that you experience already?
Being able to be out there longer, and being able to rush while I'm tired, being able to move a little better, get out the stack a little better, a little faster, a little further, and so all of those things is feeling great.
You know, Gervon, you just walked off the podium and you said you're blessed with great height, and you are. And for me as an ex-offensive lineman, one thing that intimidated me was height by a defensive lineman, because that brings length.
Right.
When you have your pass rush and you're going through all your techniques and all your arsenal, is there an emphasis on using your length to make sure that you can try to make contact to the offensive lineman before their hands can make contact to you?
For sure. I think for bigger defensive tackles and defensive linemen, that's our weapon. Our length is our weapon, just because when you create that separation off the get-off, it's hard for an offensive lineman to recover from the length. And I think that's when you use that to your ability, it works well.
When you have the length that you're blessed with, I looked at the vision that you're using. You recently had a deflected pass in practice. Caleb had to catch it himself, and he had to run it because you can't throw two forward passes. How do you combine everything with knowing the move you're going to use out of your stance, reading what the play is, pass or run, and then using your vision in order to read the quarterback? How are you able to incorporate all those within an instance of time?
Yeah, I just try to get those reps. I try to get those mental reps, or even an individual. I try to get those reps to where when it's time, it's a second nature to me. And I think I've done a better job this year at like you said, doing all of those same things at once. And I think so far, I've seen myself, one play, like we talked about where I tipped the pass, that was a bigger step for me, because normally last year I would kind of sit there and just use my extension. Well, now I'm getting my hands up. Now it creates tip passes, create turnovers, and that's what we want.
Yep, you got 81-inch wingspan, so Might as well put it. The thing that impresses me, and I think it goes often underrated, is the effort after the play, or to continue the play if it gets past the line. You chase down.
Right.
You did it last year. You're doing it at practice, and that's a wow when you see a guy your size chasing down. And I believe Coach Flus told you something about backside play wins championships, right? That was a quote he gave. But how important is it? Because to your point, fatigue guys may not run, as often, after the play. And in fourth quarter, you can make a play downfield to be just as important as a sack, right? And how important is it? And have you always been that way? Right.
So I would be lying if I said I've always been that way, but being drafted by the Bears and watching old film, and that's the DNA here. So coming here and watching the film and seeing how these guys fly around, get to the ball, and not just the secondary, but the whole unit is doing it. And like Coach Flus say, that's who we are. That's our resume, and that's how we want to be on film.
You know, Gervon, after you get off your senior year of football, it's an exhausting period of time when you go through the combines, you're getting ready for the draft, you go through the draft, and then you go through your rookie introduction. But your freshman year in college, you played every game. But your sophomore year in college, you were super productive in your numbers. You had more tackles for loss. You had more sacks. You had more production out of your position. Do you kind of see that in yourself from your freshman to sophomore year, for a lack of a better term, professionally, as you did in college?
Yeah, it's the exact same. When you come into something new, you kind of float by. You're trying to understand the scheme. You're trying to understand your teammates. You're trying to understand a lot of different things, and as well as just being young. So you don't want to make a mistake when you're out there. And so when you play like that, you tend to be a little timid and trusting yourself. Well, when you go into that next year, you know what to expect. You know your teammates. You know your coaches. You know the system. So now it allows you to play a little faster. So.
Does somebody like Montez Sweat, when he rolls into the locker room, and I forgot what week it was, but it just you stand up and notice. First of all, you guys are similarly built, so now you're playing next to him on the line. I mean, I love when the two of you are lined up next to each other. My mind starts becoming coach-like, and I'm like, oh, my God, I can design a lot of stuff here. Right. But watching him and some others in the locker room, because I think a young player just wants to survive their rookie season.
Exactly.
There's too much to learn. You haven't stopped since college, right? And you learn what being a professional is.
Right.
Did his arrival help you become what you are right now?
100%. And I think, like you said, when you're just trying to survive and then you get a guy like Montez in there and you're seeing what he does to prepare for games and prepare for the week, you kind of see, okay, well, he did that on Monday. He did this on Tuesday and then had 2 sacks on Sunday. I probably should do that, right? So having a guy like that and seeing his success, it motivates you to kind of go get it.
Or like Mercedes Lewis.
Exactly.
His routine, he doesn't let anything interrupt his routine for the week to get him ready to play.
Exactly.
And he's 40 years old.
Exactly.
Yeah. Did he ever talk to you?
Yeah, I've had several different conversations with Mercedes, and like you said, when you get a guy like that, don't we all want to play 20 years in the league? So when you got a guy like that who's at a place where you want to be, it's almost dumb not to ask questions when you see them, even if they're just eating lunch, sitting at the table. You're missing the opportunity when you don't ask guys like that questions.
You know, Gervon, in your pregame opportunity, your pregame kind of routine that you were going through, you were working with the defensive line coach and you were working on specific moves and specific get-offs on the line of scrimmage. And to me, I was kind of impressed with you because to me, you never hit a rookie wall. Mm-hmm. Am I true in that statement? Was it the Montez Sweat coming aboard and giving you a little bit of a spark, or did you feel fresh the whole year? Because it's tough going from that senior year where you play 12 games maybe to go to a 17-game season.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. Yeah, you could say Montez, but also I think for me I wasn't at a place. I think when guys hit rookie walls, or even when guys hit a place to where they're comfortable, and I wasn't comfortable how I was playing. I wasn't comfortable. I'm still not comfortable in where I'm at and in my role as a NFL player. So I think guys hit a rookie wall when they're comfortable and they're safe and they think they're safe in their spot. But I'm not even close to where I want to be as a football player. So that's why I still had goals that I wanted to check off and still do. So.
You know, you and Zach are two different positions, two different body types. Zach Pickens, I'm saying, a rookie also. Can you guys talk about defensive line play, or are there so many differences within your position and your style play that, you know, you maybe just talk to each other about the game? No, we definitely talk it. And Zach, as well as me, is two players that can play both positions. So we both talk about, okay, if you're here, this is what you do, or this is what you have, or try this or try that. So we definitely talk about the game.
What's your weight?
I'm 306 right now.
306. So it listed at 312, so you slimmed up a little bit, but you turned a lot of that into muscle. Right? So I have a nickname. My daughters gave it to me. I'm Snack Shack.
Okay.
So, late night, they actually put an alarm on my cupboard. So when they caught me in the middle of the night, eating snacks. And so we all love to have a little snack, and we don't think it's going to make a big difference until you're getting paid a lot of money to make sure it doesn't make a difference. Has it been hard to say no?
I think the first week, 10, 12 days, I think it was hard for me, honestly. I think but I think once you get a routine and you feel like you see you're getting closer to a goal and you're getting closer to that weight that you want to be coming into training camp, it motivates you. Like, oh, man, I'm close. I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer. And then after a while, it becomes a routine, and it's all the way.
Yeah,
out.
that's the thing. Eating clean, even if you're not a professional athlete, just somebody, which I'm trying to do as I age here. But once you see some benefits, you slim up, the pants go on a little better,
right.
And your workouts, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. It does. It totally. Then you look at food as just fuel, right? And I would imagine that's part of this as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. One last thing I got to ask him, because he was talking about, he was running with the DNs, Tommy, in the conditioning drill, and at the front of the line. I think that's a little bit of a competitive juice going as well, right? But there's a guy here, and Tommy remembers Tony. Remember Tony Parrish, the safety? He was a bulked up, muscled up safety, hit like a son of a gun. And one time I ran into him, and he goes, man, you slimmed up. Well, I was training for a marathon. He goes, man. He goes, I could not run more than a mile. My body would lock up. Because you guys are doing it for bursts of energy and bursts in a real small period of time, right? How have your workouts, what did you do in this offseason for what you said? You want to be as good as you are on first down as you would be on third down and first quarter to fourth quarter. Right. Because this is like bursts.
Right. And so I split those things up because, you can go out there and try to run a marathon, but it won't benefit you for a defensive tackle. So what I did was I took some of those things. I took how does a marathon trainer actually train, and how would that benefit me? Well, that was for one, that was eating right, and that was the biggest thing. I learned that 80% of it was eating the right way, and how do you eat and how do you hydrate yourself the right way. The rest was I did a workout that's called the strongman. It's called a strongman workout. It equals to their tire flips. You do 3 or 4 tire flips. You got 6 seconds to flip it. So you're burning fat, you're burning calories, but you're also getting stronger at the same time, and that's equal to me. So, for example, the tire flip or you're picking up a 150-pound med ball and you're walking for 6 seconds. That's all equal to when you're bull rushing in the fourth quarter and your legs are getting dead. Well, now when you do those type of workouts, you can go a little longer. You're not getting dead. And so all of those little workouts, running the track, running a mile and a half, running running hills, sprint training, 100-yard training. So all of those little things that I did this offseason all equals to one.
Gervon, last question for me. I've been around the NFL now for 40 years, but I've never been around Hard Knocks. Are you aware of it? Do you kind of limit your conversation? And were you a fan of it? I've been a fan of it before. Have you been a fan of it from a young guy growing up?
Yeah, I was a fan of Hard Knocks. They do a good job at not causing it to be a distraction. They definitely do a good job at that. But I've definitely sometimes watched what I say, but it's not, like I said, they do a good job at kind of staying out the way and just and doing their job. And we're still working the same way. We're not adding this or that for the TV or nothing like that. So it's the same.
Throughout my whole career, I wish at one time I was mic'd up for one game, because I would like to listen back to that as an older guy when I was a young guy. Have you ever been mic'd up yet?
Not here for the Bears, but I have been mic'd up in college. Yeah,
you got to do it one time.
Right.
It's for your kids.
Yeah,
and
you got to do it one time.
Yeah, do it.
Sure.
Save it for yourself and your family and other people. Yeah,
exactly. All right. Lastly, and we'll let you go. DeMarcus Walker. He's a Florida State guy. You're a Florida guy. He grew up in Florida. What's that like on the field? Does he give you some business? Because he's giving the offensive business all the time. That guy's crazy. I love him.
I love DeMarcus. I don't love his decision that he made to go to Florida State. I think he made a terrible decision. So, yeah.
And congratulations on getting married.
Thank you.
How cool was that? Any teammates go to the wedding?
Yeah, Zach Pickens came to the wedding. It was a great feeling, man. Yeah. Unbelievable feeling. I have a lovely family, a lovely wife, a little boy, a little 2-year-old.
Gervon Jr., right?
Yeah. So it's great, man.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a great year. It's a very important position on the Chicago Bears here.
Right.
We can talk about Caleb Williams and the offense all we want. 3 technique defensive tackle. That's big stuff.
For sure.
Appreciate it.
Fourth most important on the roster. I didn't want to say anything about that. I'm putting a little pressure on you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gervon.
Bye.
All right, I always love to get your takeaways. Would you agree, though, he's a totally different cat right now? Personality-wise, confidence, and he's big as a mountain.
Yes. We talked about it the other day when we had Tony Medlin on. What is Tony Medlin saying? You only have 1 year to be young. And that's what Gervon did as a rookie. And what I'm impressed about Gervon is he got better throughout his rookie campaign, which is really difficult because there's a lot of rookies that hit a rookie wall and then they're almost sleepwalking through the remainder of the season. He never did that. And I think that the influence and the production increase when Montez got here, because he finally had a senior leader on this position and in this locker room that really helped him fight through the latter part of his rookie career. But now when you look at him coming into a second year, it was important because you can see the change in his body. You can talk to him and hear his attitude, and then you understand what his assets are and how he's going to use them.
Over 430 snaps on defense last season and 71 on special teams, so over 500. Did not miss a game, 17 games, and started one. He will be the starter at 3 Technique here in 2024, and I can't be more excited about a player. Again, he put on a bunch of body armor, lost body fat. He got married. He knows. I mean, all you got to do is look around the NFL this year and Justin Madubuike and his big contract and what's ahead here in a couple of years for a guy if he can elevate himself, because there is never enough big guys up front on the offensive or defensive line. So this is when you have to you got to become a pro, and he's becoming a pro.
Yeah. The thing about it is when you're a second round draft choice in the NFL, all draft choices have a lot of pressure on them to perform and be a performer. When you're a first or second rounder, there's almost the feeling that you're going to be a contributor almost immediately. And Gervon was. But then when you go into that second year, the whole conversation is growth and potential. What is he doing to make himself a better player from his rookie year? And I think that Gervon has done so much that's evident when you look at him going into a second year, when he does get into full pads and he starts playing against different opponents in the preseason games. That's when we're going to see the best out of Gervon. But I hope it continues to increase throughout the whole season, and we get to see him use that 6'6" frame like an interior defensive lineman that I would be intimidated by playing against that length of an inside guy.
All right, well, here's what I'm looking for. Yes, I want to get some, I'd love him to be just a hellacious pocket collapser. But getting those hands up in the air at his size and his 81-inch wingspan on top of it. So I just looked this up. Kevin Williams, remember the Williams wall with Pat?
Oh, yeah.
Kevin Williams, again, a big defensive tackle, lengthwise. Right. 73 batted balls in his career. That's number one. And I don't know what the time range is, but here are some of the guys. J.J. Watt, of course, was widely known for this. Yeah. He batted balls down. He got his hands up. He had 70. Carlos Dunlap, the former Cincinnati Bengal, 70. Julius Peppers, the Hall of Famer, 68. Jason Taylor, 64. Cam Jordan, 61. Calais Campbell, 58. Jared Allen, a former Bear, at 58. You get my drift here? That size leads to batted balls, which leads to potential interceptions, even at the line of scrimmage, at the linebacker level, or tipped down the field into the secondary.
Okay, so it's kind of funny you bring those type of numbers for a career up, because my brother and I were talking about Gervon Dexter and the numbers I was expecting out of him this year.
What do you got?
So I want 8 batted balls, which is not a lot. I want 6 sacks out of him, and I want 8 tackles for loss.
Okay.
I'm not looking for numbers that I expect out of him in his 3rd, 4th, and 5th year. But if you give me those types of batted balls and you say you get 4 of them to convert to interceptions, say you get tackles for loss that makes the down and distance insurmountable to get a first down, and say you get 5 sacks on whatever down you want to get him on, because you know that the analytics of getting a first down after you give up a sack, it goes down considerably. So I'm not asking for unrealistic numbers, but that's what I'm looking for out of Gervon.
Here's what he's looking for. He's got it on his phone. It's a screensaver. 8+ sacks this year, 15 tackles for loss, Pro Bowl, All-Pro. That's just individual. And so he's thinking big. Last year, he really came on strong at the end of the year. Obviously, he was hitting the quarterback 9 times in the last 8 games, Tom. So he had 12 hits on the quarterback for the year, 2.5 sacks, 2 batted balls. So, yes, that leverage that he has got to play with and keeping his pads down in the run game. And then in the pass game, you know, if you've lost your rush, get the hands up when the ball's coming out. Let's get some tip balls, Tommy.
Okay, Jeff, so you think of Calais Campbell, you think of Buckner, and you think of Eric Armstead. You talk about 3 defensive tackles that have really good length. You look at where they're at in their career, and they're all going to get Hall of Fame consideration. And a lot of what they do from the inside and what it means to the overall scheme of their defense is they're using their length as much as any of the other assets they have.
All right, I got a question for you. What surprises you more? 12th all-time on this list. It's provided by StatMuse. Alex Brown, 42. But what's more surprising, the 42 or his 5 career interceptions? Playing edge.
The interceptions, they don't surprise me because it's just good readability on when the bubble screens and screens come into vogue. And Richard Dent was really good. I think Richard Dent might have had 3 interceptions in his career. But the defensive end interception doesn't surprise me anymore because these guys are working so hard upfield that if a quarterback doesn't expect them to already be penetrating by 4 or 5 yards, sometimes they throw it right to him. But I don't know if any of those were tip balls for Alex.
Peppers had 9 interceptions in his career.
Wow.
Just a unique athlete.
That's impressive.
Richard Dent, 8.
8 interceptions.
Correct.
Okay.
8 interceptions.
I'm underselling the big man. Sorry,
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Oh, my gosh. This is good conversation. We're brought to you by PNC, official bank of the Bears. And when it's time to tackle some game day deals, then go with a grocer who's been a part of Chicago since 1899. Jewel Osco, the official grocery store of the Chicago Bears. So when we talk about pads coming on, you know, tempers are going to flare. The conversation, the ear hustling is going to ramp up considerably because we got a loud secondary and we got some really patient but competitive veteran receivers like a Keenan Allen and a DJ Moore and a Cole Kmet and a Gerald Everett in the tight end position. This is going to be a fiery training camp when the pads come on because already the offense has it's been pointed out that, yeah, you guys have been taking a lot of verbal instigation from the defense. It's only going to heighten when the pads come on, and it's only going to sharpen this football team considerably. I can't wait to watch it. Obviously, when you get one-on-ones, offense, defensive line, we love that. But this is a high. If that's 1, this is 1A. I can't wait to watch it.
Well, you know, the thing about it is we're going to be privy to those types of conversations because you kind of hear them from the sidelines on the practice field. The information and the argument that we're not going to be privy to is in the meeting room. Because, Jeff, when you put on full pads, the meetings take a whole nother level of seriousness because you're talking about real football. You're not talking about a defensive back coming, oh, man, I would have hit you in the open field. You know, you don't know that. But now all these portions of whatever your job requirement is going to be real because you're going to have pads on. And now the coaches, they have to be more critical of you. That's when you have to get thicker skin in the meeting rooms, and that's when you can't take offense if the coach is trying to coach you because pads are for real. On the practice field that the fans and will be able to hear, we'll be able to see it in Hard Knocks, for gosh sakes.
Yeah.
But inside those meeting rooms, that's more real than any part of football that we don't get a chance to see.
What else is on your list of can't wait to see type things? Anybody in particular or a group against a group or obviously just the continuing development and progress, the incremental improvements that Caleb Williams will take and make?
You know, 2 things are, first of all, a year smarter, a year wiser, a year more intelligent, and more difficult to practice against Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards. Because last year when we came to training camp, Tremaine Edmonds was out a little bit, and these guys were just being introduced to a new system. And I think the first couple games of the regular season, they really weren't what they ultimately became. So to put those guys out in the field every day, i.e. Singletary, Otis, and Wilbur, it was a complete nightmare. So now when you add those guys in Sanborn and the rest of the crew, I think watching that linebacker position and the influence between the back end of the defense and how they interact with the defensive line. And that, to me, is the competitiveness of the running back position.
Yeah.
I know DeAndre Swift is brought aboard to be a 3-down running back, but when you lose the legs of Justin Fields, you got to have the legs of the running back position. So how are they going to be included? Is there going to still be that role of importance in terms of the analytics and the percentages of the running game and the way it's called? Are we going to have more screens and play action involved in the offense? And then how is the running game going to, really factor in to help Caleb? And I think when you look at two really important portions of the overall team success, running back and linebacker are two of the key ingredients that holds everything together. You got to have a performance of an offense, whether you got one of these guys in an important blocking role, are they going to catch a screen, or if there's a designated run to them? And then on the other side of the ball, how does our linebacker position factor in and make the overall scheme of the defense better, faster, and stronger?
Well, we're learning that Kevin Byard is a heck of a communicator back there. Does not shock me at all.
Not at
classy guy, classy veteran, ball hawk, 28 career interceptions. And did you hear Coach Flus saying that John Hoke is the best corner coach in the NFL?
I wanted to bring that up. I meant to bring that up yesterday, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Can't agree with him more. I mean, just a wonderful coach, feisty. He's got his players' best interests, and, there's plenty of history lessons about guys that may not have liked him early in their career, and they are close friends to this day. Guys like Tim Jennings, who took his share of verbal abuse at times from John Hoke to get him to play a certain way. He's got the players' best interests in mind, the team's best interest in mind, and just a fiery coach. Love that guy.
Love me some John Hoke. Here's a guy that probably didn't have the athleticism to play a position of such importance on a football team, and he went out there and had a career. And it's kind of funny, Hampton was telling me a story that when John Hoke was here, the first Thanksgiving, Dan Hampton had John Hoke over to his house for Thanksgiving dinner. And then you just think of the lineage here with the Chicago Bears, but what he's meant and how he's developed a position. That's one of the most, to me, it's the second most difficult position in football. And I'm glad that Flus gave him such a high compliment from the podium the other day.
And he didn't just say, he said it with emphasis.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Very demonstrative. I know you're very intrigued. Obviously, the punter for the Bears is going to be the rookie out of Iowa, Torrey Taylor. But the left-footed Corliss Waitman, I'm sure we'll see him in the Hall of Fame game. I did some work on this guy. What an interesting guy. A Belgian-born left-footed punter out of South Alabama. Moved to the U.S. at 15. His mom's family is from South Africa. Dad from Belgium, who was a professional basketball player overseas, and the family moved to the Netherlands. So he did play his high school football here in the States, but he's a very good punter. He had a year with Denver in 22. He had the most punts in the NFL that year. And he was number 12, I think, or 10 in hang time. But that team struggled, and he had 90-plus punts. So in the mile-high air for the most part with all those home games out there. But this guy can punt the football, and you've brought it up to me. And I like that they have a left-footed punter and a right-footed punter. And I didn't realize this, but since 2007 or 2008, Bill Belichick had a left-footed punter. So the spin of the ball is different, challenges, the bobbles, any hesitation could mean disaster in the punt return game, as you know.
How far is the Netherlands away from Australia? When you want to talk about the distance of the same position player that are so far apart in where they were raised and how they were raised, it's incredible that it's the two punters this year of the Chicago Bears. But I think it's super beneficial to have a left-footed punter in camp to get these guys with 50 or 60 reps.
14,784 kilometers, Tommy.
Amazing. I mean, just amazing when you think about where the NFL is going in terms of worldwide recognition and talent in talent coming aboard.
Yeah, it's good to see, that's for sure, because more and more international influence on the agenda, indeed. Miller Lite is our sponsor. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. And draw up a great game plan of savings with Jewel Osco for your digital coupons. Download the app for a fully loaded lineup of hot deals on produce, salty snacks, tasty beverages, and more. So back to the practice field on Thursday and Friday for the Bears, Tommy, and the pads come on Friday. Fans will be out. They'll be enjoying that view for sure. If you haven't been there yet, I think there's been one fan practice. It looks fantastic. They did a great job. The seating areas now have a canopy to protect you from the heat of the day, and the practices are going to be better than 2 hours, 2.5 hours when the pads come on. So it'll be a long day out there in the morning. Come on out if you haven't already purchased your ticket or bought your ticket. That gets you into the facility. It's a tremendous setup. The Bears staff has been working diligently here the last few years, but they have been preparing this for many, many weeks in advance of this. The fields look great. It really looks beautiful and a great view for HBO's Hard Knocks to take it all in.
Before we go, so I started watching the rugby, 7-man rugby on the Olympics today. And when I think of kickoff and kickoff return, and I look at some of this New Zealand team, or the USA is playing the Fijians today.
You're scouting.
Listen, when we talk about players introduced from around the world that want to play a different sport, or somehow how do they develop their ability, we may see some rugby players in the future coming from that sport to play on kickoff and kickoff return.
Well, Kansas City signed Luis Reis, a European rugby star, Luis Reis-Zammit. He will likely be on the kickoff coverage during the preseason, so you can take an eyeball to it, and Dave Tobe's crew over there.
They tackle and block, so that's the thing about it is I don't think they're just have only a singular skill set. I think that they have a portion of special team skills, punt, return, kickoff, return.
Tom, with the spirit of the Olympics, what sport would you have wanted to try to be an Olympian?
Oh, I mean, it's either beach volleyball or wrestling.
Yeah, I was thinking the wrestling part, but the beach volleyball makes complete sense. You might have been a terror out there. Those days at North Avenue Beach, I never got to experience that.
I would have got distracted by the surfing from the beaches that they were playing on. That I probably wouldn't have invested the right amount.
When's the last time you played volleyball on the beach?
Right before I got my first hip replacement.
Yeah, do you miss it?
Years ago.
Do you miss it?
I miss all activity.
Yeah,
of course.
Vizzy Hard Seltzer, flavors for every vibe. Celebrate responsibly. Molson Coors Beverage Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Tommy, we'll see you in Lake Forest at training camp on Thursday and Friday. Don't be late, and we will talk to you again. Coming up next week, by the way, our podcasts include a visit from former Bears defensive tackle Henry Melton, who was at practice the other day, one of Lovie Smith's guys in that era of Bears living in the city. And the other one is one of note. Devin Hester, the Hall of Famer, will join us. That will drop next Thursday, the morning of the game against the Houston Texans in Canton. So we had a great conversation with Devin.
What a thrill it's been to talk to the ex-Bear players, even Chase Daniel and stuff, because we don't get a chance to talk to them a lot other than about football stuff while their career is going on, and get a chance to talk to them for at least a half hour or more throughout the podcast. It's been, I've loved every minute of it, just because there is no, there's no separation. We're just all, former football players talking about life.
Yep. There's a lot of perspective that we hear. And, nobody's rushing to get to a team meeting, and you only have 10 minutes with them, and they're they're not completely locked in. All right, Tom, thank you. Thank you to Gervon Dexter Sr. And for Tom Thayer, I'm Jeff Joniak. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please subscribe now to the Chicago Bears official app, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts, and do that subscription. Helps us out. Appreciate it. And bear down, everybody.